Our first reading this morning comes from Reverend Sarah R. Speed. It's called Field Notes, and it With tears in your eyes, you name all the bumps and zigzags your life has taken. With clenched teeth and a hummingbird pulse, you wake up and wonder, how did I get here? In the last 40 days of desert wandering, you say you haven't heard God's voice once. You say you miss when God was close, when God used to sing the harmony line. So you yell at the sky, begging God to drop a pin, to name the road, to draw you a map. You lament the way that this life isn't easy. You ask me, was the road ever straight and narrow, or was it all a lie? But then you crest the mountain, and I don't hear from you for a while, because God was growing in the lilac field on the other side of the hill. God was scattered among the pebbles of the road you never planned to take. Isn't it amazing, you say, there are 1 million roads home, and God walks every single one of them. Our second reading, our Epiphany story, can be found in Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 to 12. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, the Magi from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star in the east and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. And calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet. And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod secretly called the Magi and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word so that I may also go and pay him homage." When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen in the east, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chest, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. This week, we come to the end of our Sanctified Art series and turn to the Magi. As we try to read the familiar story with fresh ears and eyes, the long, unexpected journey of the wise men from the east to Jerusalem points to a core truth for all of us. Life will unfold with unexpected turns. These wise men were court priests and practiced magic and astrology. Up until fairly recently, if you had asked me a question that a lot of us get, "What's your sign?" I would have rolled my eyes. I'm a Virgo, by the way, and if you know anything about Virgos, my personality totally tracks, so I don't know why I was rolling my eyes. But over the last few years, I've paid attention to the fact that most of the social justice peacekeepers who I most admire, they have a lot of things in common. They're queer, they're Black, they're radical feminists, and they all rely on magical wisdom, including astrology. Some of them even call themselves witches or describe themselves as witchy. They talk about having trickster energy that they use to speak out and subvert systems of oppression. And that all sounds good to me. So they, along with this passage about the Magi, got me thinking about mysticism. Have you ever wondered, am I a mystic? If not, it's probably because, again, like the racism word, it's a hard one to define. In mysticism, direct knowledge of spiritual truth or ultimate reality can be attained through our subjective experience. In an article that I found about the 10 telltale, I can't say it. Patty, I'm going to have to get the microphone to get you to say. Telltale signs of mystics. Kara Hebert lists many things that ring true for me, and we'll see if they ring true for you. Number one on the list is that you value experience above all else, as mystics tend to steer clear of strict doctrines. Number two, you question existence, asking questions like, why am I here? Why are we all here? I won't list all of the 10 things, but number 4 on the list is that mystics trust their own intuition and value similar traits in others. Check. Number 5 is discomfort with spiritual hierarchies because they do not believe that there is only one path or correct way to experience divinity. Check. Number 9 is that they believe that love is the source of life and that it powers everything. Check. Finally, number 10 on the list of mystics is that mystics acknowledge that the universe is infinite and mysterious and is far too complex for the human mind to fully comprehend. Check, check, check. These could be the mission statements of this here church. Maybe we all need to be open to a little more magic in 2025. I'm pretty sure we're going to need it. So, getting back to the Magi, they follow a star, embarking on a long journey to a foreign land in order to honor the newborn Christ. Instead of returning to Herod as commanded, they trust their dreams and go home by another way. Their road isn't straight, but God makes a way in the wilderness as they follow their intuition and diverge from the expected path. Where would you be if everything had gone according to plan? Young people have this tendency to create roadmaps for their lives. My youngest daughter, a high school senior, is an expert map maker. She meticulously envisions where she wants to wind up, dreams up how she would prefer to see her life unfold, and then sets goals that will land her at her intended destination. Meanwhile, I sit on the sidelines and shake my head and do my best not to laugh out loud at how much she reminds me of myself at that age. At times, I confess that I attempt to sub in as the head coach of her team, but mostly I'm more like the water boy. I admire her determination, of course, but from the seat of more life experience, making carefully crafted plans seems naive at best. I mean, if my plans had worked out, my life would look more like Olivia Pope's, the crisis manager from the show Scandal. You know the lifestyle, someone who spends all of their disposable income on amazing clothing and travel, and helps people get out of jams using her instincts and communication skills, all while being single by choice and having the occasional passionate romance. Instead, I settled down at the ripe age of 22. I do have a passionate romance, but only with the one guy. Most of my disposable income goes to my children who have expensive taste and lofty educational goals. I personally find international travel to be a bit of a nightmare, and I work as a modestly compensated pastor at a time when Christian nationalism and white supremacy are trying to hijack our religious tradition and our country. And while these and other details of my life were not in the cards, I'm playing the hand that I was dealt and finding joy in new priorities, all while managing the despair that comes from simply being human. But one of my predictions did come true. Let's face it, we are all crisis managers like Olivia Pope, even if we don't get to dress the part. Before I continue with my sermon, I'm going to give you an opportunity to reflect and share with someone. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to turn to someone, hopefully someone who doesn't live in your house, and just share 1 or 2 ways that your life turned out differently than you thought it would. And on Zoom, I invite you to share that in the chat. So share away. Okay, I'll bring you back now. I was able to read some of the lovely things that people shared on Zoom. Thank you so much for your participation, even from a distance. And I hope you enjoyed getting to know something about someone that you didn't know before. Like the wise sages, at some point we too could be called to embark on an unexpected journey to an unknown place. We will encounter barriers, detours, and deterrents along the way. And if we're listening closely to God's still small voice, we may find ourselves stepping on a new path. Life's road was never meant to be a straight line from one point to the next. But we have to believe that God is with us in each and every twist and turn. There are many faithful paths, not just one. And the Magi teach us that a faithful path can be one that resists deceptive and oppressive powers, following God's light wherever it shines, even as we bring our own divine light. In a book called The First Advent in Palestine, Kelly Nikondeha describes how Alexander the Great brought influences of the West into Eastern regions when he defeated the Persians in 330 BCE, causing Persians to long for a restoration of their own indigenous practices and leadership. The Magi, Nikondeha argues, pushed against Hellenization of their culture and religion, working for future restoration. In this way, they followed the bright star into a foreign land, not because they wanted to honor a new king for themselves, but because they hoped that a Judean restored to the throne could have a ripple effect into the East. They longed for a Persian ruler who would respect their Persian culture and God. How does this historical context influence our interpretation of the story? Nikondeha writes, often the story is told as a worship narrative in which foreign sages from the East travel to worship Jesus, validating his place as the Prince of Peace. But truer to the story is a star, a birth, a narrative that sends the Magi home with visions of liberation for their land too. They set their own rules, as mystics are wont to do, and they bring their trickster energy that we all need to carry into 2025, where everything is at stake. In this Epiphany story, the star is a guiding force of hope for the Magi on their journey. When you feel as if you are in foreign territory, what are your guiding forces of hope? What signs do you look for to know where to turn? God calls the Magi home by another road, and their choice to heed the call opens space for Jesus' ministry within the community, which demonstrates the power of steadfast love for us all. Shortly thereafter, God calls Mary and Joseph to journey to another land to protect the Messiah until it's safe enough for them to return home. What parallels do you see between this story and our systems and lives? How do we create safety for one another? What does it mean to adopt a costly commitment to care? What sacrifice will you have to make? What preparation will you need? What inconvenience will you endure for the sake of another? Life is the detours, the dead ends, the getting lost. It's looking around to see who can help. Maybe you're like me and you say, thank you, God, that my life didn't turn out the way I planned. In our first reading, Reverend Speed writes, God was scattered among the pebbles of the road you never planned to take. I bet that's true for you too, if we just slow down long enough to look for those scattered pebbles. The road isn't straight, but God is always with you along the way. To close my sermon, I want to share a beautiful heart offering from Nyla Francis. She's here, and if she wants to read it herself, of course, that would be lovely. But there is no pressure because you already wrote it and allowed me to share it, and that's enough. Okay. Thank you, Nyla. I put this at the end of my sermon because Nyla Francis should always have the last word. So thank you, Nyla. It starts here and continues here.
Like this. Okay, that's really loud. So this is a blessing for entering the new year. May this crossing bring warm rains and buttered sun. May the way be scented, rose and chamomile and cinnamon bark, a garden for your grief. May what wants to be left behind fall from brittle branch or curl in tongues of smoke. May eye of doe and dove behold you, a house of witnessing gather you to help you bear your tenderness, walk beside your wistful ghosts, companion you through fear. May you come to the banks of joy, feel the weight of your own daring to get splashed, wade in. May you find your dreaming song, your sturdy, valiant voice. May they weave your truth into the web of your becoming. May this shape, new and delicate, be a shining, so much to leave behind and so much to live into, carved from every prayer, howl, and feral dance devoted to your loss. May you trust this heart, its trembling deep, to hold all you carry and still make room for more. Here, where love has marked you, stood you, brave and fierce, a splendor bloomed from subterranean ache.
That is the good news of God. Amen.